If the Joker is so evil, why doesn't he molest children?
Brace.
What?
That would be.
Yeah.
Like, you know what's crazy? Okay.
He's never done it.
So,
Doesn't he kill children as far as I know?
Well, first of all, he's supposed to be like an anti-hero, so no pedo anti-heroes.
He's supposed to be an anti-hero?
I mean, isn't he?
Yeah, I guess so.
Is there a Batman in this movie? I haven't seen Joker yet.
No, I don't think so.
Everyone says it's terrible.
Well, but also everyone's like...
Did people actually think it was going to be good? Is my real question.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're like, this is like Taxi Driver.
People tamper your expectations.
Oh, I'm thinking of River Phoenix. What if River Phoenix was in it?
Well, he's dead.
I know. But what if...
But
that would be the real Joker's trick.
But if they were to if they wanted to one-up themselves on Incel Joker...
Yeah.
Pedo Joker.
Yeah, he'd be like... they're just drawings of young girls.
Isn't that like what the Pied Piper is?
The Pied Piper is absolutely
Pedo Joker. He even wears he's like festooned,
basically.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, I would say 1950s, 60s, 1 in 3 adults was a pedophile.
No.
Almost everyone. Because they didn't know, you couldn't know how old someone was before then. Before the advent of birth certificates, there was no proof. So you'd be like, I thought he was 18. I thought this baby was 27 years old.
This is not how this
I'm just
works.
bringing all these kids to this cave using my pipe. And then, what is he, puts rats in the town after that? He's like, I'm stealing all your children, replacing them with rats.
Yeah, it was like to teach a lesson, wasn't it?
People every lesson was learned pre-50s via rats and child abduction. There was no other way. People were too stupid. Schools weren't there was no Common Core.
Isn't that kind of how the Ninja Turtles came to be? A rat abducted young turtles?
Yeah, but it's he made the turtles human into teenagers, and then they wanted to fuck.
Yeah, they're teenagers.
Yeah.
They're not adult by definition. Not adult. So you've got a grandmaster rat man,
Orientalist,
Pied Piping these little teen turtles. And sending them out on adult adventures doesn't sound too above the.
Imagine being the reporter they wanted to fuck.
Oh my god! Yeah, what was
these
her name?
turtles want to fucking April
O'Neil, of course.
Typical Irish.
I was obsessed with her when I was a kid, and when I was a kid in England, I remember being out on the playground, and the boys wouldn't let me play Ninja Turtles because I was a girl.
Everyone's like, we think you're Jewish and we love Jeremy Corbyn. You can't play with the turtles with us. Oh, I seen you baking the blood in the matzah, mate. You can't.
What?
Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein. Come in. Jeffrey Epstein.
Hello, guys. I'm back.
Liz has been we found her. Yeah, she went into hiding after a mass shooting at a Joker premiere.
No, that's not what happened.
Welcome back.
I got sick of you and I didn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah, she did. I had to go black bag her, bring her back here.
Waterboarded me.
I had to be like, Liz, please come with me to a second location. I will give you $5,000. Do you want to intro us, Liz? Ride the lightning again, baby.
Hi, hello. Welcome to TrueAnon. I'm Liz.
I am Brace. We are joined by Young Chomsky, our producer.
Yeah, and we are back.
Yes. Back from, I wouldn't even call that a hiatus. It's just been a single episode, and it happened, so it wasn't a hiatus.
And it was just for Patreon, so all you cheapos, you didn't miss anything.
Yeah, you guys still think Liz has been alive this whole time instead of resurrected by me via all that was left of Liz was her frozen head and penis. And I had to
really quick before we start.
Yeah.
I want to give a special shout out to long time friend of the pod, Hayden Sheepler.
Yes.
Who is, I believe, listening. And
hello, Hayden.
if our friend Hayden is having some medical issues in the family, and we just want to have all of our listeners, religious or not, send some extremely large,
Psychic.
joyous psychic energy towards the Schiebler family.
Think healing, love, beauty. But seriously, send psychic energy towards
Yes, and also I would be remiss if I didn't also mention that Hayden has posted a link to donate for some medical funds, and I'll include that in our show notes if any of our listeners are feeling so inclined, as they should.
Good idea.
So Hayden, we are thinking of you and your dad and your family, and thanks for listening.
Yes. Now to talk about Alan J. W. C. Dershowitz.
Our man is back in the news.
I love it when he comes back. It's people are always like, man, I can't wait till Alan Dershowitz or like what's the other guy? They look the same. It's like the same guy to me. Henry Kissinger. I want these guys to live forever. They're
Henry
great
Kissinger
foils.
looks like
Alan Dershowitz.
the bloated, decomposing corpse of Alan Dershowitz.
It's fantastic, dude. Imagine them.
It's like
just
a Russian doll of just
background of Eyes Wide Shut, just fucking undulating on some like prostrate 19-year-old.
So disgusting.
Oh, some young girls are yelling at me from outside. No means no. Time's up.
Okay, so a couple things about Mr. Dershowitz came in the news. One is that Alan Dershowitz is publishing a new book.
Yes.
Out in November. Alan Dershowitz's new book will counter the hashtag #MeToo movement.
Oh, this will end it once and for all.
Sometimes there's just these little things that drop down to earth like little gifts from God. Mm-hmm. And in all of my days, I did not expect, though perhaps I should have, that Alan Dershowitz, mired in sex scandal after sex scandal,
Just thousands of them.
would decide that now is the time to publish his polemic against Me Too.
Oh my God, his mind. It's beautiful.
I mean, it's, this is a genius.
He is, I honestly, like, this will end it. Rebecca Traister, time's up, bitch.
The book is called,
Who's Rebecca Traister?
ugh, don't even get me
You read
started.
the Obama Boys article?
Oh, wait.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about Tracer.
Okay, go ahead then.
That just put me in a bad mood. I'd rather talk about Alan Dershowitz than Rebecca Tracer.
Same thing.
We'll just leave it at that. So Alan Dershowitz's book is titled Guilt by Accusation, the challenge of proving innocence in the age of hashtag #MeToo. Mm-hmm. The book is slated for release November 19th from Skyhorse Publishing and is expected to be the publicity-seeking attorneys, gotta love the New York Post,
Yeah.
most concerted effort yet to counter the claims that he had sex with Virginia Jeffrey.
So it's basically just to counter that claim.
I mean, it's kind of crazy to turn turn your defense of
Yeah.
basically, no, I did not have sex with this woman who was a sex slave on Jeffrey Epstein's private island, which maybe I had been at, I don't know,
Can't remember.
with a published polemic,
Yes, a book.
a book on an entire movement that, by the way, has nothing to do
Yeah.
with Jeffrey Epstein or these allegations against and this is the thing too, because I do like to identify as hashtag #MeToo critical, and I do have a lot of criticism that I could get into. I'm not going to.
Yeah, it's for rich women.
That's for a different podcast.
Can I say that?
Yeah, I'd go further than that though, but I'm not going to. But there's absolutely no way that my criticism is the same as Alan Dershowitz's.
What if it is?
And no, there's no way. And also, Virginia Jeffrey didn't Me Too Alan Dershowitz.
She was like, "You raped me."
This is not a Me Too.
And this wasn't like fucking feminist currents didn't publish Virginia Jeffrey being like, "My night with Alan." It
yeah.
was Virginia Jeffrey, like,
Jeffrey Epstein turned me into a sex slave. My memoir published by Babe.net.
she wasn't like, Virginia Jeffrey has like 800 Twitter followers. She's not like a Me Too person.
Yeah, Virginia Jeffrey isn't trying to take Alan Dershowitz's job.
She put him, well, he's a writer sometimes and an op-ed person. So actually, the Epstein case was broken on the shitty men in media list.
Moira Donegan's new book, Guilt by Accusation.
It is fucking ridiculous. I cannot wait to read it. It's also smart. Honestly, though, it is smart of Alan to try to lump himself in with Me Too, because I think a lot of people, even like more, let's say, or less critical people of it, are like, well, what did it really accomplish?
Mm-hmm.
Not a whole lot for most women. Mm-hmm. And Alan's like, yeah, look, it was all bullshit, including the one about me.
Yeah. In the book, according to a spokeswoman for Skyhorse, Dershowitz is claiming to have turned over travel documents that showed he could not have had sex with Jeffrey to Julie Brown, the investigative reporter from the Miami Herald, whose stories about Epstein's alleged sex trafficking helped spur the reopening of the case.
Yeah.
So this is just all a bunch of, I didn't do it.
Yeah, or if I did it.
Yeah, I look forward to Barry Weiss in conversation with Alan Dershowitz about the Me Too movement. Forthcoming, I'm sure, in the op-ed pages of the failing New York Times.
I'm looking at more of Skyhorse Publishing's output, and they have Charles Manson's Creepy Crawl, The Many Lives of America's Most Infamous Family, which I'm sure pales to Chaos, which is a fantastic book. And they also have Diana, Case Solved.
Yeah,
the definitive
how about
account that proves it
case
really.
unsolved?
Yeah, I would actually go ahead and say case still open.
Yeah.
A case might be solved on this podcast, but it's definitely not being solved by the people who also put Fix It and Forget It, the big cookbook, 1400 best slow cooker recipes.
Is that affiliated with Pow Wow Chow?
Yes. By the way, yeah, this has nothing to do with Epstein, but just to be clear, Elizabeth Warren wrote, and actually it appears to be she plagiarized recipes from the New York Times food section for a cookbook her family put out called Pow Wow Chow.
I don't know if her family put it out, but
I believe her brother put it out, or her wrote it or whatever. Imagine if Bernie was like, yeah, this is my recipe for my family's ancient General Cho's chicken, which my Chinese grandfather made. It's ridiculous. Is that not?
Jews love Chinese food.
We do love Chinese food. And there's actually Kaifeng Jews in China. They're Chinese Jews that converted it, I think, many centuries ago.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay, so there's back to what our podcast is actually about. Although I do love to talk shit about Elizabeth Warren. There's more Dershowitz news.
Yes. So we enter the realm of the legal with this.
Also known as the law.
The law, the legalities of the situation, etc., are thus. So, everyone knows that there is these new tranche. They love calling it a tranche of documents. A tranche of documents coming out, which I'm going to. I had the first batch printed out.
Tranche.
And I had the first tranche printed out and put in some binders. Well, I put them in the binders myself.
Along with all the women.
Yeah.
Remember women in binders?
Yeah, I got some binders full of sex slaves. Anyways, there is a second tranche that is going to be released, or a judge is perhaps going to order their release.
Yeah, judges judging.
Yes.
Right
I believe they are from the Virginia Jeffrey lawsuit against Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yes.
Which Ghislaine has long been saying that, no, you don't need to release these. Actually, they're just totally stupid. That, like, you don't even, I mean, why would you even want to read them? It's dumb. And now there are some John Does, because the big news around this is there are apparently 1,000 names in this. Which
Yes.
I can't wait to read about Bill Gates, allegedly. 1,000 pedo. That's
Are you doing an Austin Powers?
That's a Dr. Evil, though it is also played by Mike Myers. I can't do it good, so I stop myself mid-sentence. Here is from the New York Post. Lawyers for the John Doe filed the letter Tuesday. This is the letter saying, please don't say that I'm a pedophile, or please don't release the documents. Just a day before Epstein's self-proclaimed sex slave, Virginia Roberts Jeffrey, is expected to join her lawyers in court as they continue efforts to unseal thousands of pages of documents. But now, Alan Dershowitz is actually requesting that those documents be unsealed. He has long said that these documents will somehow
Clear his name.
By just making sure that we know everybody else is a pedophile, so it's totally normal.
Yeah, and so this is even weirder, is that apparently Dershowitz is also like recorded a conversation between him and David Boies.
Who is a lawyer for some of the girls. In fact, you should call him David Girls. He's a lawyer for some of the girls that are parties or were former victims of Jeffrey Epstein.
Yes, that are suing.
Also a lawyer for Harvey Weinstein.
Yes, he famously is was representing Weinstein when Weinstein allegedly hired Mossad agents
Black Cube.
to sick them on journalists investigating Weinstein.
Yeah.
So it's very weird. Dershowitz says that he transcribed the audio himself of this recording between him and Boies.
That's such a
And
baller move.
says the recording captures Boies casting doubt on the claims of his firm's client, Virginia Giuffre.
Yeah, and you remember Dershowitz has long maintained that Virginia Giuffre was made to accuse Dershowitz by her lawyers and was pressured into it. He uses as evidence some emails that like could be sort of interpreted that way if you're of the mind to interpret them in that manner, but certainly are not unambiguously meant to read as such.
I don't understand.
I think that was kind of a jumbled sentence. So Alan Dershowitz has long maintained that Virginia Giuffre was put up to accuse him by her lawyers. In fact, I think by actually a different set of lawyers than David Boies. And there are some emails that if you read them very ungenerously, they could make it seem that way, but it's certainly like there's a lot of ambiguity there. And it's not a cut and dry thing whatsoever. And obviously Alan Dershowitz allegedly did it. So it's not like,
yeah,
she could have just been afraid to say that he did it because now look what happens.
this is like one of those situations. So this is like the whole, in my opinion, this is like the whole Biden-Trump thing.
Yeah.
Where you're just like, there's no good side here.
No. Well, Virginia Giuffre.
Well, no. I'm talking about between Boies and
yeah.
Dershowitz.
No.
Because the stuff with Boies representing these victims, we've long said has smelled like a real limited hangout.
Yes.
And like he's like, the crowd he runs with is not one that I would say is on the side of justice for victims.
No, and especially with these totally unsurprising Lisa Bloom revelations, where that's Gloria Allred's daughter, who it turns out was working extensively for Harvey Weinstein against the victims that her mother was representing.
Yeah, so it's like all of these. First of all, I don't trust David Boies at all.
I don't trust anyone over 30.
But it just makes me very sad because it's like, I don't want to like root for Alan Dershowitz.
No.
And I don't want to root for Boies. It's like, what am I supposed to do?
Well, we should root for a lone gunman. Sorry, what?
Yeah, don't say that.
Yeah, no, it's just one of those things where it's like people trying to find. It's like Hong Kong and China. Just kidding. Cut that.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's like I'm interested to see what happens, but I'm certainly not in anyone's corner here.
Yeah, I wouldn't. That's the one thing I would say, like, I don't know. As much as I want to clown on Dershowitz, at the same time, I don't want to clown so hard on him that then I end up protecting Boies. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, in my opinions, obviously, I don't have any sway over anything. Except, obviously, this podcast is very powerful.
Yeah, clearly so. So speaking of Ghislaine.
Miss Ghislaine Maxwell. Mm-hmm. Yes.
You've been doing a little research.
Yes. So, let's break the fourth wall a little bit here. Brace and I were planning on a big episode on Ghislaine.
Yes.
And we still are. And we have some stuff to talk about with Ghislaine. But what's really crazy is the wormhole you get into, and you start looking into stuff with Ghislaine, and then of course her dad Robert, and then her sisters, and that's where we maybe got a little off track.
Yeah, I wish I was being pushed off a yacht right now because that would simplify my life immensely.
So let's start with Ghislaine.
Christmas baby.
She was born on Christmas.
You know who else was?
Jesus.
Himself.
She was born on Christmas Day, 1961, allegedly.
From her lard ass father.
Brace, you know a great deal about Robert Maxwell.
Robert Maxwell at this point was 900 pounds and 5'4".
Didn't they like call him like the Beast?
Yeah, well, it's funny because he was really handsome and charming and smooth. Let's back up here a little bit about Robert. He was a Jewish man, much like myself, and then that is where the similarity ends, I assure you. Born in Czechoslovakia, which also became Hungary. It's like one of those regions between in Middle Europa that changed hands quite a few times. He fled to Britain during World War II. Joined the British Army, became an officer, possibly committed a war crime by killing an unarmed German officer, which he was being investigated for. No harm, no foul with that one. Fine with me. Everyone he knew, I believe, was killed in the Holocaust, and he started despising Hungarians. That is besides the point. He was smart because he brought up basically all these German like technical manuals like immediately after the war ended and started Pergamon
Press. Yeah, we're going to talk about them a little bit later.
And made a bunch of money off of that, and then created this giant publishing empire, ruled it like a tyrant, started looking like shit immediately after Get Rich, with much respect on that, because I would too, and became basically a rival to Rupert Murdoch, often actually called, and I hate to say this, the socialist Rupert Murdoch, because he was once a Labour MP.
Yes. So he married a woman named Elizabeth Maxwell. Betty, as they called her.
Oh, yeah, that's generally what you shorten Elizabeth to.
Yeah, Elizabeth, no relation, described her husband as, quote, bullying, unfaithful, and frequently absent.
You know, she died in poverty.
Yes. Due to, well, we'll talk about Robert's death in a minute.
Yeah.
So they had 9 kids.
My man.
9 children.
Robert, Bobby Bustin.
Ghislaine, Ian, Kevin, Isabel, Christine, they're twins. Karine, Philip, Anne, and Michael.
So Karine died at 3.
Yes.
And
one of the brothers.
Brothers?
Yeah, so actually one of the brothers, he was, I think he was like 13 when Ghislaine was born. But like 2 days, this is so crazy, you guys. Like 2 days before Ghislaine was born, he was in a car, her brother was in a car accident, immediately in a coma for 6 years.
6-year coma?
6-year coma, and then...
My God.
Yeah, and so apparently
Punished Maxwell.
Betty Maxwell,
Yeah.
Mama Ghislaine, says that Ghislaine developed anorexia as a toddler to deal with the horror of her brother's coma.
Wait. Anorexia as... She is the most advanced woman known to man.
I mean, it's that... I've never heard of that.
How do you develop anorexia? That's just not eating because you're like, no, food's gross because I'm a baby.
Yeah, I don't think babies really have that. I know, it's very strange.
She's like trying to like, it's, that's gross. Also, like, how are you even affected by a coma of someone you never met when they were not in a coma when you're a toddler?
I know, it's all very, well, I mean.
She must be an empath.
But also if you've got absent parents, you know.
Yes. And Robert
not a lot of physical... I mean, if the mother is distressed, you don't have a lot of physical contact with the mother, that can be very, that's imprints on the child.
Happened to me.
Oh, really?
Yeah. My mother was like a drug addict.
Oh, baby Grace.
So Robert was quite busy around that time fucking everything that moved. In his, like, he had like a Trumpian, like, gold, like, penthouse, basically, that he screwed everything that walked in.
Yes. Apparently, well... I guess Ghislaine was Robert's favorite daughter. Much to the most likely chagrin of the other daughters.
I would assume that would not make them happy.
Yes, who were about 10 years older than her at the time.
Yeah.
So that's a big difference.
Yeah, it's...
He sounds like a real patriarch in all senses of the word.
Classic. He would make Ghislaine... They found actually a letter from her to him. He would make her go to these parties and then write up reports about what everyone said about him afterwards.
Yeah, he would interrogate all of the kids at the dinner table, like at their manor in England, grilling them about geopolitics and foreign leaders and what was going on in the news.
I guess we would be a little remiss not to mention exactly what his relationship with some foreign leaders was.
Well, that's the thing. So he was a, quote, publishing tycoon.
Yes.
And he was.
He was.
And he definitely was an MP in Parliament. Mm-hmm. But as we've alluded to and talked about on the show before, Robert Maxwell was also what some have called a super spy.
Yes. He was basically... So the way it works in intelligence is that there are agents and there are assets. And Maxwell blurred the lines between those. First of all, he basically financed Israel's beginning Air Force in 47. He got him planes.
Huh.
Which is...
Yeah, that's a little...
kind of early for him, too.
Yeah.
And then worked for them as just a we'll do a whole episode on him later. Because we
want to get into the kids.
Yeah, but he was a prolific spy.
Yes.
Possibly also was the person who lured the whistleblower on the Israel's nuclear program, who went to England, lured him back to the embassy, had him black bagged, taken back to Israel's secret closed-door trial.
Oof.
Yeah. Buried, well, we'll talk about that later. How he was buried.
So he, which we've mentioned before, he died basically in the midst of almost bankruptcy, a bankruptcy scandal.
Oh, yeah, that's almost an understatement.
Yeah.
He had actually, because he was a super rich guy, right?
Yeah, until he wasn't.
Yeah, but
very
yeah, he
weird,
was
too.
running out of money, and he was possibly also threatening Israel with exposing a lot of their secrets if they didn't give him if they didn't basically bail him out, which may have been why he was pushed off the yacht. Fell off his yacht.
Well, that's the thing. So yeah, in 1991, he was found in the ocean, out off the Canary Islands.
Yeah.
And they said off of his yacht, the Lady Ghislaine, named after his favorite daughter. Mm-hmm. And there was a real question. Even the New York Times said fell or pushed.
Yes.
Although some speculated suicide because of the nature of his financial situation.
And his financial situation was this. He was ripping off everybody's pensions. There were no pensions anymore anywhere in his empire.
Oof.
Not for everybody, but for almost everybody. You can actually listen to, there's some, I think, Witness BBC shorts about, was one of them about a journalist who kind of got ripped off by him, who just was in his empire. But yeah, he took hundreds of millions of dollars from his employees.
So when the New York Times was reporting that his death, they said, meanwhile, colleagues who knew of telephone conversations Mr. Maxwell had from the yacht with family members and business associates in the hours before he died expressed bafflement, saying there was nothing in his manner to suggest he was distressed or acting oddly.
Does this remind you of something, my fair lady? I seem to recall a certain other Jewish I should just say billionaire.
Financier.
Remember, I'm Jewish, so it's okay. It's just a certain other financier, billionaire, who was in high spirits before his sudden, mysterious, and convenient demise.
Yes, it sounds a lot like the reporting around Jeffrey. Mm-hmm. Anyway, Israel gives him a state funeral.
Everyone gets that.
Attended by the country's political elite, and he was buried on the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem.
With military honors, I believe.
Oh, boy.
Or maybe it's just state honors, but regardless, it's...
So part of Maxwell's newspaper empire is actually the New York Daily News.
Oh.
And so it's interesting because a lot of reporting around Ghislaine says that she, in the months after her father's death, is when she left Britain to move to the States to
Yes.
start a new life
On a
or whatever.
Concorde jet.
Yes, on a Concorde jet, yes. But actually, some reporting at the time kind of paints a different story, which says that Robert actually asked her to move to New York to sort of establish the Maxwell name in New York society to kind of like gin up support for the newspaper
Yeah, he was pretty
and
big.
get information into the papers, into the gossip pages, society connections, etc., etc.
You told me about a specific society connection they wanted to make marriage-wise, right?
Oh, yeah. He was allegedly obsessed with the idea of getting Ghislaine to marry JFK Jr.
That's weird because, I have that weird connection to the Kennedys.
I know. But also, it's also just very funny given the whole Q situation.
Yes, JFK Jr. Oh, my God.
But so the other thing too to remember, which I always found fascinating, is that basically the Maxwell name, shortly before Robert's death, had been like completely ruined.
Absolutely thrown in the mud.
It was like trash.
Yeah.
In the UK, and so a lot of the kids came to the States because they knew no one would know who they were. Mm-hmm. Which is kind of an interesting. I mean, you think back, it's not like the internet,
Yeah.
So, across the pond, I
You're
guess
just
they
like,
didn't
this
have
is
this
some
problem.
British lady, yeah.
Yeah. So Ghislaine sets up shop in the early 90s in Bright Lights, big city, Manhattan.
She lived in the Friends apartment.
No. Yeah, her, Jeffrey, and 5 other girls.
Yes.
I'll be there for
And she
you.
was going around insisting that her father was murdered.
Yeah, she was obsessed with the idea, apparently, that Robert was murdered by what she said Mossad agents and also Sicilian mobsters.
Well, let's put a little point on that because the mob and intelligence agencies have been sometimes basically indistinguishable from each other.
Yeah.
Look at JFK.
Right.
And it's that's not that far-fetched.
No.
Especially around...
The Sicilian, I like that just the little detail about them being Sicilian and not Italian.
Yeah. They're not. She's a Sicilian nationalist sympathizer.
So, there's not a lot of... There's a couple like gossip items about her in the late 90s, but not a lot until the early 2000s when that's like right when they start kind of reporting on Jeffrey.
Yes.
In the society pages. And Ghislaine is sort of rumored to be obviously his girlfriend. Then it's reported that she is his girlfriend, but it didn't work out. But now they remain best of friends.
And that she was very adept at hooking him up with her friends.
Yes. This is from an old piece. In one way, they are soulmates, yet they are hardly companions anymore. It's a nice conventional relationship where they serve each other's purposes. Oof. So, curiously, the New York Post in the late 90s had this to say about Epstein. And this is so funny because, I'll say in a second why this is so funny. Epstein is an enigmatic figure. Rumors abound, including wild ones, about a career in the Mossad and, contrarily, the CIA.
Contrarily.
Some have even said that he was once a concert pianist. He seems to deny nothing and admits even less. And here's one of the former girlfriends said, he told me he was a spy hired by corporations to find major amounts of money which had been embezzled. So this is something we'd heard before, but I just love that. So this is stuff that was being alleged in Y2K.
Yeah.
As we used to call it. I've heard.
You were just a baby then, Liz. You were suckling at my breast. How could you have even... Yeah, it's baby anorexia.
No, but so, all this, like, especially in the, lamestream media, all this, like, we don't know if Jeffrey was CIA. We don't know if he was involved in it. It's like, no, you bozos have been talking about this for over 10 years.
Yeah, honk honk, you fucking clowns.
Yeah, who's Joker?
We got this from
We
you.
got jokers in the papers.
Exactly. Yeah, this
Jokers to the left of me, clowns on the right.
everyone. Yeah, damaged beyond repair.
So I just want to say that anyone who's still questioning, all of our listeners, I'm sure you get some concerned troll friends who are like, I don't know, I'm boring and have no imagination and no one likes me.
It's conspiracy. It's Occam's razor. I will use that razor
To cut your throat, bitch.
to make you a fucking falsetto. I will remove your balls. We will make a new generation of castrati, some skoptics.
You can't stop saying that.
I can't stop saying castrati.
Anyway, this is, it's been in the papers.
Yeah.
This is known. Also, it's crazy that they say Mossad and, contrarily, the CIA.
It's people love to pretend like the CIA and Mossad are like somehow at odds, or that like my favorite is when people think that Israel somehow controls America when it's
Israel is a CIA op.
it's like it's
I say that?
literally, yeah, might as well. It's fucking like, yeah. If
Center
you're
yourself,
president of
Grace.
Israel, you are the station chief for Palestine, is what that means.
Right.
Like, it is, yeah, it is basically a fucking military outpost.
Like, Israel is just a military base for the United States.
Absolutely.
All right. I hope I don't get shit for that.
Well, what's going to happen? I guess Labor Friends of Israel are going to put some charges up on you.
So, okay. So, let's, for a second. Mm-hmm. This is, so we're looking into Ghislaine, and she's very, like they described Jeffrey, very enigmatic figure.
Especially during this period.
A big fixture in New York society, as is well documented with her appearance at, of course, Chelsea Clinton's wedding.
Yes.
With her little
A little poke out there.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a cute little photo.
Photo
but also
bomber.
all the, she's all over Getty Images, society functions. She's in the papers. Girl about town.
Yeah.
So looking into this, what was really interesting was then what happened to her sisters.
Because they were girls about a different town.
Yeah. Okay. So we want to focus a little bit. We're going to kind of like move the conversation out of the Ghislaine orbit and into the Christine and Isabel Maxwell orbit. Now, these are the older twins.
Twins.
I was just about to say something, but I'm not going to anymore.
Satanic.
No,
Much more open to Satanism.
I don't think so.
A twin. There is. Okay.
But there is something, they've got twin telepathy is a thing.
Twin telepathy is an absolute thing.
I
Ask
know a
Dr.
twin.
Uh-huh.
I know two twins.
Yeah.
One set of twins. Shout out Rosa, Bella.
So
love
wait, do you know, are these 4 people you're talking about or 2? See, this is why it
One
gets
set
confusing.
of twins.
You just know,
Two
2
people.
Yeah, okay.
One set of twins.
Yeah.
They're great.
Twins, huh?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So they are rather different, but also kind of similar.
Yes.
To some
so
other members of the family.
They also moved to the United States.
To the West Coast.
The West Coast. Mm-hmm. They, Christine Maxwell.
Well, she actually, in the 70s, worked as a middle school teacher.
That's right. Christine. Okay, this is so weird. So Christine she's a middle school teacher. Mm-hmm. She publishes a dictionary.
Yeah, the Pergamon. I don't know why I can't say this. The Pergamon Dictionary of Perfect Spelling, which was a dictionary for dyslexic people.
Which is very sweet. Mm-hmm. Very great. But then, do you know what her next career was?
No.
Tech.
Oh.
Which makes total sense.
Well, who among us hasn't gone from being a middle school teacher to being a tech baron? Actually, let's be clear. She was like a tech queen.
Yeah, so she she goes from being a book editor in publishing in England to then being a co-founder of one of the first internet search engines in the United States.
That would be Magellan
Magellan.
/ Excite.
Magellan was bought by Excite
Gotcha.
for a cool $16 million.
That's nothing.
So I just want to because this, when I was reading about this, it started really blowing my mind.
She was the creator of it.
Yes. Christine and her twin sister Isabel created what they called one of the first internet dictionaries, but it wasn't. It was a search engine.
Yes.
In September 1995. Now, they also worked with, this is where it's going to get weird, you guys. I'm sorry. That Ghislaine Maxwell's husband, Roger Molina. Mm-hmm. Now, that name probably doesn't sound too familiar, but perhaps his father does. His father was Frank Molina.
Of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory.
Yes. Now, Brace, do you know what the Jet Propulsion Laboratory was?
Only kind of, and I'll be bad at explaining it.
Okay. Frank Molina worked with another famous man named Jack Parsons out of Caltech in 1936 to 1940, which was at basically the Guggenheim Aeronautical Laboratory, which went on to become the Jet Propulsion Laboratory.
It was a NASA thing later, too, right?
Later it gets contracted by NASA. But this was basically the only university-based rocket research center. They were looking into jet propulsion technology. Mm-hmm. And after their work at Caltech, it gets swooped up by the Army, by DOD, and funded through there.
The one thing I do know is that they later worked very closely in collaboration with celebrated freedom lover and champion of democracy, Wernher von Braun.
Yes.
The famed Nazi who was the prize piggy of Operation Paperclip. Operation Paperclip is the operation where American intelligence removed as many Nazi scientists as possible from Germany before the Soviets could get them.
Right.
And so it led to a lot of people who had done some very nasty things, including creating the V-2 rocket and various instruments used in the annihilation of the Jews, to working pretty plum jobs in places like the JPL.
Yes. So, okay, before we get any further down this rabbit hole, because there's more, guys, I just want to pull back for a second and lay it out again. Ghislaine Maxwell's twin sisters moved to Silicon Valley, start up one of the first internet search companies, along with Christine's husband, Roger Molina, who is he's a scientist, and we'll get into him in a second, whose father worked with U.S. military on jet propulsion technology in Los Angeles in the late 30s, early 40s.
Mm-hmm. And there was some other weird shit going down there, too.
Yes. So the team at the Jet Propulsion Lab was famously called the Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
And that's where that name comes from. But perhaps people are more familiar with Jack Parsons, who worked with Frank Molina. Now, Jack Parsons...
He was in the Birds.
No. He was a devoted follower of Aleister Crowley.
Mr. Crowley!
The Aleister Crowley.
Yes.
Do what thou wilt, that shall be the whole of the law, Aleister Crowley.
Yes. Parsons had a house, which was more like a compound in Pasadena.
Yeah, it was called the Agape Ranch or something like that?
Gape Lodge.
Agape Lodge. I don't like that.
Which basically was a commune, self-sufficient commune that had livestock farms, which they said, eating, but also doing blood sacrifice. Mm-hmm. And he used the garage for chemical experiments. So this is a quote from people describing the scene in Pasadena at the time. It's full of people with, quote, masks on. Some had costumes on. Women were weirdly dressed. It was like walking into a Fellini movie. Mm. Women were walking around in togas and weird makeup. Some dressed up like animals, like a costume party.
Doesn't take a true detective to figure out what was going on
there. For God's sakes.
That is a little crazy. On the fucking nose.
This is crazy.
Absolutely. So this is Christine Maxwell's husband's father was basically in this agape lodge doing God knows what with God knows who these women were.
Not
while
only-
also creating insane missiles and stuff with ex-Nazis.
Yes. Thank you, Bryce. That was a great way to lay it out.
Okay.
Not only that,
Yeah.
there's Jack Parsons was by the man himself, allegedly, supposedly, in correspondence, described as Crowley's American protege.
Yes, he was.
Do you want to say a little bit about Crowley? Just
So-
surface, because we got to save a real.
Yeah,
we got to
we'll
do
have
a
a
full
barn
episode.
burner involving more about this.
Yeah.
But Crowley, as we know, was a famous magic, but he was one of those guys that spelled it with a
Magic.
K, Magick. Sex magic guy, blood sugar sex.
I mean,
Sorry, I'm
kind
not
of.
going to say it. Not going to say blood sugar sex magic. And was basically like a Rasputin figure without a Tsarina to attach himself to. Floated through London and New York society. Shot dope, which much respect, hard to do. And actually, he wasn't that good at it because I think he died from heroin. I'm not sure about that, but his whole thing was he wanted to resurrect a goddess, I believe, Babylon.
That wasn't his whole thing, but it was
it
one
was
of the
part of
things.
his thing.
This
Yeah.
isn't what his founding religion or cult.
OTO,
Yes, that's the name of it. The Ordo
Telemic.
Templi Orientis.
Yeah, of which there are still OTO temples around.
But this is the Ptolemaic religion, I guess you would call it.
And he had some dealings with, of course, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. Different from the Greek Golden Dawn. And actually, probably, just judging by latest articles that came out, more successful. And have killed less people. Yeah, so Crowley was, Mr. Crowley. Dun, 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 dun,
Yeah, okay,
dun.
so that's
famous
just
black magic guy.
just a little bit about him. But so Parsons was also in the mix with another bizarro occultish figure,
No.
Ron Hubbard.
L. Ron Hubbard.
Yes.
Jesus.
And actually,
Christ.
so apparently, allegedly, at one point, Hubbard was living at the Pasadena compound with Parsons. And Parsons would write to Crowley singing praises of Hubbard and saying that he had the keys for Parsons being able to do the ritual to summon the goddess Babylon.
Yes.
And Crowley was very suspicious of Hubbard, from what I read in their correspondence.
Yeah, Crowley could be fairly fickle about the other people he sort of saw as competition, too.
Or he let into his orbit.
Yes.
So, very strange. And there's lots of weird stuff with Hubbard and also the U.S. government.
And he, of course, the Scientology has one of their vaults, which can actually be seen from overhead satellite images, right near the Zorro Ranch compound.
Oh, Jesus Christ. So, just before we get back to the children, really quick, Parsons died 37 in a quote-unquote accident.
Yeah.
At age 37, not the year 37, excuse me.
Involving a work accident.
Yeah, he apparently he also had died penniless. He had spent all of his money into this occult, and people kind of thought he was crazy. And so he was trying to sell at the moment of his untimely demise.
Yeah.
Let's call it a coinky-dink.
Yeah.
That he was attempting to sell rocket information to the Israelis.
Yes.
Very strange.
Yes. Okay.
Now, who else was perhaps involved with the Israelis at this time?
That would be Robert Maxwell.
Okay.
Yeah, and who else was involved with basically rockets in the Israelis? Obviously, Robert Maxwell, too, with the whistleblower, and yes. Small world. It's crazy.
It's just, it gets smaller every year.
Yeah. Yeah. I love being connected.
Roger Molina also... Okay, so that was a Parsons. I don't want to get that confused with Frank Molina, who was just his comrade in arms. That's his own description. But Roger Molina strangely enough, had this to say about his father, Frank Molina. My father started, after the kind of, he left the Jet Propulsion Lab, he was accused by the government of being a communist, actually. Big McCarthy sweep.
Honorable.
Yeah. But Roger Molina claims that basically not only was his dad, there was an FBI warrant out for his dad, but also that his dad was an FBI agent.
An actual FBI agent.
Yes. So it's very confusing.
Yeah.
Where is it?
This is starting to sound a little familiar.
So back to Christine, now that we've given that little background information. So Christine and Frank Molina's son, Roger Molina, and Christine's twin sister, Isabel, found this company, Magellan. They sell it to Excite.
$18 million, actually,
18.
it looks like.
Isn't that what I said?
He said 16.
Oh, sorry.
But she's the one who wrote the notes, so it's,
They sell the company. Then they kind of go their separate ways. And Christine goes on to found a company, or goes on to partner with a company called Chiliad.
Yeah, sometimes pronounced Kiliad, which gives me a little bit of a shiver.
Chiliad. Now that is Greek for
Millennium.
millennium. Interesting. So do you want to talk about them for a little bit?
So Kiliad, it's a little difficult to parse because a lot of their sort of promotional materials, first of all, seem very budget. Like it's all in my head because they're narrated.
It was the 90s.
Yeah, but all the videos are narrated by a woman with a sort of older British accent, which I'm almost positive was Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yes.
But they created a program for law enforcement agencies that, let me get these quotes up here. So Kiliad is basically, here's a little quote. For nearly 10 years, Kiliad Incorporated has been quietly working behind the scenes to develop some of the most powerful and innovative software in the U.S. government's anti-terrorism arsenal.
Yeah, so this was after 9/11.
Yeah,
Go on.
So here, from a description of them, the FBI, which has 8,000 active user accounts representing intelligence agents, analysts, and agents from the FBI and multi-agency joint counterterrorism task forces. So there's 8,000 users across the different intelligence agencies in the U.S. These users execute 1 million searches and analyze each month. Analysis each month to connect the dots across more than 700 million records and documents from more than 50 multi-agency, multi-format data sources connected to the National Counterterrorism Center and to databases of the Department of Homeland Security, the CIA, the NSA, and the Pentagon with an average execution time of 4 to 6 seconds. So basically, they are connecting the records on each person across different agencies. This has always been the dream of intelligence agencies in the U.S. and, in fact, across the world.
Now, this sounds eerily similar to Promise.
Yes, which is the software that Robert Maxwell, the Israeli government stole, that Robert Maxwell helped hawk to different governments, and which included a backdoor put in by the Israelis so they could look up at the information. It's almost exactly the same.
So what's even crazier is that there's a paper, peer-reviewed paper published by Christine earlier than Kiliad getting this massive contract with U.S. government.
Yeah.
This was published in 1997, and this is what she had to say about the project. In our opinion, corporate nirvana is the use of data mining tools and data warehousing will only be achieved when companies link the concept of data mining to equally sophisticated information retrieval tools. These tools will work on the basis of combined machine and human intervention in more intelligent ways than those presently offered in today's information retrieval tools. Corporations will need to run 2 complementary data information retrieval processes. One process will literally mine data and allow software to detect hidden patterns. Another process will query information through the posing of specific questions and secure targeted answers. Machine learning is in its present state is nowhere near the capacities of a human. After 30 years of artificial intelligence research, we can no longer claim with a straight face that machines can replace humans. Instead, we are looking for ways in which the machine can aid in a specially integrated fashion, rather than replacing human intervention. We believe that the remedy is still for human and machines to work together in order to extract the most useful knowledge from a database.
This all sounds a lot like social credit.
Yeah, there's definitely some emerging internal logic.
Absolutely. Like you're seeing like, oh, well, these government agencies can sort of use these crosstabs and connect the dots between these different, let's say, user profiles across the different agencies in order to create like a complete profile on someone. And that logic, of course, extends to the private sector as well.
Yes. So it's all very strange. So basically, again, back up. After selling off her startup with her sister, she then goes on to found or is head up as the CEO of an Israeli company.
Yep.
Dedicated to, quote unquote, connecting the dots between intelligence services and private companies for data mining and like purposes.
Complete social profile on somebody.
Complete social profiling. Sells this to DOD, FBI, NSA, and private companies.
Yeah, the FDA even. In fact, they call it a nation-sized cloud.
Ugh. Nation-sized. Doesn't this sound a lot like what we were talking about with Facebook?
Absolutely sounds like what we're talking about with Facebook.
Which, as we know, quite possibly another DoD project.
Yeah, and a lot of similarities between
This is
between
making
these
my
things.
brain swirl.
I'm thinking maybe tech might not be so great.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm getting that. I'm getting a little creepy vibe from it.
But so this is, as we mentioned, eerily similar to the Promise software that Christine's father allegedly sold to the Israelis.
Yeah. It's almost indistinguishable in a lot of ways.
This contract, this intelligence contract, was secured post 9/11.
Yeah.
Which there's some questions about Israel's involvement in 9/11.
Yes, there are. And the U.S. government's involvement in 9/11.
And lots of people's involvement.
Killian also built, I believe, the investigative data warehouse for the FBI, which is a searchable database operated by the agency. Which sounds good, right? That sounds cool. That sounds like something you'd want Ghislaine Maxwell's sister to be involved with, right?
Well, before we run out of time, I do want to touch a little bit on also what Ghislaine and Christine's other sister got involved in after they sold this search engine.
Okay.
Isabel Maxwell also went to go work for an Israeli company.
ComTouch.
Now, what's ComTouch?
ComTouch is according to, it's now called Siren Limited, a cloud-based internet security technology company providing security as a service and threat intelligence solutions to businesses.
But even weirder about this, her going to this company, is that prior to this little startup that she did with her sister, which didn't really go anywhere. I mean, it got bought, but it didn't go anywhere.
That's the dream, right?
Is that prior to that, she was a film director.
Yeah.
And so I have some real questions about why an Israeli company is hiring her as a CEO of an email.
It's a little weird. She also, I think, has a master's in education, which I think both sisters do.
Yeah.
It's a little weird that both of these sisters just became like huge tech people involved in basically the same part of the industry, which is security and analysis
And data.
and have their products spread across so many different companies too.
Yes.
It's Siren offers endpoint protection, which I think I sort of understand what that means, but they are involved with all of your smart fridges, with a bunch of cell phone companies, mobile phone manufacturers. They got their fingers in a lot of pies, but they're providing security.
Yes. It's all very weird. So Ghislaine's got her own shit going on.
Yeah.
Right? But the two girls, the two sisters, like, not only, by blood relation, husband, linked to, we'll just name it all out, DOD,
Aleister Crowley.
Nazi physicist.
Yep. FBI. Israel. Missile manufacturers.
Also tied into Silicon Valley.
It's inseparable at this point.
The search functionality and search algorithm.
Yeah.
Developing that. Also tied in to national security apparatus, intelligence software.
Your smart refrigerator.
And theoretical work around the possibilities of data mining and human and machine intelligence.
Yes. So, that's the Maxwell family for you.
I mean, and we haven't even gotten into the brothers.
Oh.
They
Or
kind
the
of seem
ghost
like
of the
little
dead.
fail sons, though.
They were
kind
like-
of remind me of the Trump kids.
Yeah.
They actually, the two brothers, I can't remember, there was like some lawsuit where they were like embroiled in a lawsuit about committing fraud, and it was
Yeah.
like a really obviously terrible, like
Isn't
stupid.
Bill Browder tied into all this too?
Oh my God, we don't have time to get into that.
But just to let you people know, Bill Browder, look him up, but son of Earl Browder.
Yeah, also allegedly the protege of Robert Maxwell.
Yeah. So, Jesus fucking Christ.
So we've got a lot of, this is just what's like emerging from this entire podcast. It's
Yes.
like the crosshairs of intelligence, Silicon Valley, technology,
Rich people.
of course,
Yeah.
the mob,
Israel.
the CIA,
Trying to think of other people. Pedophiles.
DOD,
Yeah. FBI.
artificial intelligence.
Being frozen after you're dead. Cryo freezing.
Yeah, and sexual perversion. Oh, and the occult.
Yes.
So basically, Pizzagate's real.
And Babylon will be reborn. In Liz.
No!
Yes.
No, she's redhead, apparently.
Well, I can die ya.
Okay, that's been a lot.
Yes. Yeah, that is a lot to take in. Close your eyes, reconnect your telemic energy from earth to sky, and sit with me in prayer. Satan.
No, don't do any of that on the... No, I'm a
Okay.
God-fearing woman.
Yeah, I'm more afraid of Satan.
Well, fair enough.
Yeah, so thank you for sticking with us through all that. I know it's a
Yeah,
lot.
sorry, guys, if we went on for too long.
Not our fault.
There's just so much out there.
They
and
shouldn't
we
have done this.
are committed to bringing you the truth.
We will see you next week. This is me, your host, Brace Robert Maxwell Crowley Belden.
I'm Liz.
I'm joined by producer Young Chomsky.
And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Let's get you in. Jeffrey Epstein. Let's get you in. Jeffrey Epstein.